Hello everybody and welcome back to SkySaga Alpha 8! We are over here with the Blueprint Trader and it is time for another Tutorial Tuesday. So, because we're over here with the Blueprint Trader, today we are going to be looking at blueprints and we are going to be looking at absolutely everything blueprint related, from how you first get hold of them, what levels you can get them at, what leveling up does to your ability to make blueprints, all of the tips and tricks you are going to need inside the blueprint creator itself, and then placing them down, filling them up, and some small little tricks that happen when you actually have a blueprint machine that you are about to place down on your home island. So, to get started for today, we are going to talk about how you get blueprints. So, blueprints come from this guy, the Blueprint Trader. He is in the Settlers Guild in the city of First Light. You need to be a level 2 to get your very first blueprint, and from there it seems as though you get half the number of blueprints as your level, if that makes sense. So right now I am on level 6, and if I go into my far hauler and pull up blueprints, we can see I am qualified to have 3 blueprint studios. So when I level up to level 7, I will still only be able to have 3 of these, because half of 7 is 3.5, but it seems as though it rounds it down at all points. So hopefully, if everything goes correctly, when I get up to level 8, I'll be able to get 4 of these. But all I do know for right now is that you do get 3 of them by level 6. So that's where you find these guys, and you can store all of them up in here, and then you can jump to each of them to actually build whatever is in there. So once you actually qualify to get a blueprint studio by hitting level 2, all you need to do to get one is to come up to this guy, talk to him, and right at the top it just says take for free, and you can take one of these, and in my case I can actually take a couple of these, and now I can use these and add these to my slots in my far hailer. So if we use that one, the far hailer will pop up and show that I have a new blueprint studio. There we go. And then I can use the other one, and I will get a third pop-up in here as well. So yeah, these things are pretty easy to get your hands on. You can of course also from this guy buy blueprints from other people. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that people have already created. They have a certain price associated with them, and you can also come in here and view details and look at all of the materials that are required to build these things, and look at the photos that the player themselves took of these builds, because then that way you kind of get a bit of an idea as to what you're going to be in for when you actually place this thing down and use it. So obviously this is a very, very big blueprint, but we'll talk more about the sizings of things when we get in there. And we'll also talk about the placings of these things later on. You also have transactions, which shows you how much commission that you've got, and also allows you to claim back your commissions. And and there we go. So I've just claimed back my commissions. So this is the commissions that you get when somebody else buys your transactions. And I have put up 2 so far, and as you can see, I have already sold 1 of mine. So this thing lets you kind of look through your stuff, and also allows you to collect any coins that you get from selling your blueprints. So yeah, that is it for talking about this guy. Now we're going to head over into a blueprint, and we're actually going to have a bit of a look around. We're going to talk about some of the limitations, some of the things you can do, some of the things you can't do, some of the improvements that you can make on things, or some of the improvements it has to regular building. So let's head on in to a blueprint. Okay, and here we are inside the Blueprint Studio. Now, for those of you who've never been into a Blueprint Studio before, a couple of things you will realize about this place. So we've got a nice little raised platform that's got a few machines on it, and it's got all of these chests along the back here. Now, these 13 chests along here are for the 13 colors for the game, and each chest contains stone of that color, wood blocks of that color, wax of that color, logs of that color, leather of that color, and metal sheet and crystals of that color as well. So this is where you're going to get all of your building materials from. You can get them in absolutely any color. One thing I will say though is that just because you can get them in here doesn't mean they're going to be easy to fetch out in the real world. So you need to make sure that the things that you are gonna put down are something that you've seen before in Worlds, just because you don't want to come along and suddenly put down a whole bunch of bloomstone or anything like that, or wherever the limestone is. So here we go. You don't really want to go out and put a whole bunch of lush stone down if you've never seen lush stone in a world before, because it's going to make it very, very difficult for somebody to actually use your blueprint and make it into a real thing. So of course, those are those 13 chests. They're pretty standard. They all have a different color in them, and then just a stone and all of those things for each color. And then over here we've got two specialty chests. So these hold, the black one at the top holds horns and paper and other kind of small bits and pieces that you're going to need. Don't quite fall into the normal color groups. And then the white one down the bottom holds the settler's dust, which is a pain, but hey, at least I give you a lot of it in the Blueprint Studio. Thatch and dirt and just kind of stuff that doesn't, again, fall into those categories. But this is more block stuff, and the other one is more kind of mob drops and things like the horns and the sheep's wool and all of that kind of stuff. So the other cool thing about this place is that building things is a lot faster in here. So if we just pick up a little bit of metal, we'll see that going over and crafting a block in our forge happens a lot quicker than it normally does. So down here you see craft 1 second, which is awesome, because that means it is a lot quicker and easier to get a build up and running. Now, up on this ledge, you can't actually place any blocks down. Your entire area to build in is down here in this build platform. So you need to come one step down, and then you can place down whatever you like. Now, as soon as you start placing down blocks, you will notice this thing here pop up. This is the ghost of where the blueprint machine is going to be, and it is going to move and calibrate itself based on whatever you place down. So if I grab some blocks out here, so the blueprint machine is currently here, but if I start by placing something behind the blueprint machine, it's going to recalibrate itself, and you can see the blueprint machine now sits to the front of the build that I've created. And at the moment, this is a pretty simple build. There's not a lot really going on. Yeah, so that's kind of the basics for building. The other quick thing I will mention is that when you come into the Blueprint Studio, only the settler's gear is allowed. So that means only stuff like the pickaxes of range and demolition, also the breastplate of free flight, the gloves, and the boots. And then it will knock everything else out of your inventory, including all of your pickaxes or your regular pickaxes, but it will give you a shadow iron plate pickaxe every single time you come in. Of course, you don't get to keep this thing. Once you leave this world, it will disappear. It will leave your inventory as you leave the world, just like any of the blocks or metal that you pick up from the chests out the back. So now that we have the basics covered, you're about ready to jump into one of these things and start for yourself. Now, the very first thing I will say is that the minute you jump into one of these, don't go starting placing blocks down. The first thing that I personally like to do is come over to here to the blueprint analyzer. You can open this up, and this has all of the settings and stuff for your build. So the very first thing that I like to do is add a blueprint name, because once you've added a name for this blueprint, it will change in your file holder and you'll actually know which blueprint is which. Now, you've already seen me do this. I have a blueprint called Not Shop. That blueprint is not published. It's still sitting exactly like this one. So for now, we're just going to call this Test World. And we're also going to come down here and actually pick some tags for this. So I'm just going to call this a building, and that is going to be good for now. So this machine also lets you know when your build is valid and when your build is not valid. So at the moment, this build is not valid for a couple of reasons. Oh, well, for one main reason. So right, it's got a name, which is cool, but it doesn't have any photos selected. So it's actually short on building details, which means it is not currently valid. But if we jump out and took some photos, it would be valid and we could publish it. But we don't want to publish it right now because there is nothing really here. This thing also gives you your submission price and the current retail price. Now, these things are a really, really important thing to watch out for, because the higher these get, the less likely somebody is actually going to buy and use your blueprint. And these things can be, like, the price of this can be driven up incredibly quickly, and the easiest way to drive up price that I've found so far is to just flood the island with metal blocks. The more metal blocks you place down, the faster that price goes up. And the faster the sell price goes up, the faster the submit price goes up, which means it takes more settler points of yours to actually submit the building. So it's in your very best interest to kind of keep your metal blocks to a minimum, and also try to keep your build size to a minimum as well, because build price does also go up by build size. So if we come all the way out over here and place a block down, we should see that our build price has jumped up just a little bit over here. Then if we start throwing down all of these metal blocks that I've got, we'll very, very quickly see that build price goes way, way, way up. And as you can see, my build price has already jumped up to 2,620 knots and a 4 settler point submission price. So if I keep adding more metal blocks to this build, this thing is just going to get more and more and more and more expensive, and it is just going to get to the point that people aren't going to want to buy it. Not that they want to buy a giant pad of pink metal, but yeah, if you add lots and lots of metal blocks to your build, then you will run into the same problem. So my advice is to keep your buildings concise and as simple as you possibly can. Now, there are also limits to this thing, so despite the fact that we've got a very, very large build limit out here, you can only build a building 32 blocks in each direction. And here is our max build size. So this here is 32 by 32 by 32. And as you can see down there, my Blueprint Studio is currently saying current validation status ready to go, because I've actually taken a photo of this and I've added that to the machine. So you can see that this 32 by 32 by 32 block is actually a valid size for the Blueprint Studio. Now, watch what happens when I come down here and we add a block to the end of this arm over here. So we're currently sitting at 32 by 32 by 32. We add one block down and bam, current validation status bad, because it has gone out over the limit for the 32 by 32 by 32. Now this happens in all three dimensions. So we've gone out in this direction. Let's go out in this direction. Once again, bad. And if we go all the way to the top of this spire up the top here and add one more block, you will see that we actually get a current build validation bad. And also, just a quick note here is that the bigger you build, the more expensive your build is going to be. So as you can see, my current retail price is 4,370 knots, and it is literally just a gigantic corner. And it's just because this build is now at the absolute maximum size, so it's going to be expensive for you to sell and also for somebody to buy. Now, price is also another limitation on this thing. So there is an upper limit of price, and let's just have a quick look at that. So attempting to find the upper build price that you can use before it's not a valid thing anymore, I've run into this issue. So right now we are at 42,000 knots as the buy price and 70 settler points as the submit price. Now, as you can see, 70 settler points is above the 51 settler points that I currently have personally. And if we actually go in and have a look at the machine, you'll see you do not have the 70 settler marks required to submit this blueprint. So it turns out that the actual upper limit, I have been told that there is an absolute max upper limit of 80 knots for the current retail price. But there is also an upper limit based on what you can actually afford to submit. So for right now, my upper limit is 71 settler points. So that means when this build hits 71 settler points, then I am actually at the upper limit and I can't, the build is no longer valid because I couldn't submit that. So despite the fact that we've placed down a whole bunch of metal blocks here, I can't even hit the upper limit of how many knots you need or how many knots you can have in a build. So the final thing that has a limitation on it inside the blueprint area is number of decor items. Now we're going to have a quick look at that as well, because I think this one should be a little bit easier to show off on camera. And yeah, I'm just going to build up a whole bunch of decor items, and I'll show you guys how many I'm going to start with and where we end up when we actually can't put down any more decor items at all. So cleared out some room, and we're going to place down some stone steps until we hit the upper limit of decor items. Now I've got 257 steps here, and we'll place all these down and work out the upper limit. Here we go. So 200 decor items is your absolute maximum. So right now I'm sitting at 56 decor items, and if I pick this guy up and go back up to 57, we should see that that thing will refresh and come back to correct validation status. Yeah, the maximum number of allowed props is 200, which means that this should be allowed. Let's just quickly pull one of these up. Just like that, and now it's allowed. Okay, so the maximum number is 200, so this is currently at 200, but if you go over 200, you go to 201, and you take away the 201st item, 200 will stick you as not able to go forwards, and all you need to do is go back down to the 200 mark and then place down again, and you can actually have all 200 decor items on your island. So there you go, that is 200 decor items. Obviously that is a very, very large number, and so unless you're building a really, really big build and you're probably going to be filling out all of this space, you're probably never going to hit that. But there you go, that is the absolute upper limit to this thing. And of course, adding all those down does add quite a bit of expense to the build as well. So the final couple of things here in the Blueprint Studio are all to do with the Blueprint Analyzer over here. So the Blueprint Analyzer is the thing where you can either submit or destroy your island. So submitting it will take away however many settler knots you need or settler points you need from your total and submit it to the Blueprint Studio. We'll do that one in just a second. The other one is destroy. Now destroy is what you want to use when you are really, really unhappy with your build and don't want to spend the time to, let's say, pick up 200 steps. So there are 200 steps out there. I really don't like this build. I'm not happy with it at all. So if we go into here, you will see, like, we've got all of our details set. We had some photos taken, we had some tags set, all of this kind of stuff. If we click destroy, it's going to ask us if we really do want to destroy this island. And if we say yes, then it will kick us out of the Blueprint Studio, and everything we've done in this Blueprint Studio will be destroyed from the very beginning all the way through to the end. After you've done a destroy, you will end up back on your home island. And looking in your FileHailer, you will see that whatever Blueprint Studio you were in has disappeared from your Blueprint Studio list. So that's not to worry, you can always go back over to the Blueprint Trader and pick up a new Blueprint Studio and add it back into your list. But that studio that you destroyed is completely and totally gone, and there is no way back now. So if you are going to destroy a blueprint, you need to be really, really sure that you actually want to destroy that blueprint, and there is nothing in that blueprint that you want to keep. Now we're going to go and talk a little bit more about submissions. So I'm going to go over there, back over there, and build something I actually want to submit, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about submissions. So when you go to actually submit a design, so this is my little design here. It's a nice little barn type thing. So what you need to do is you need to come over to the Blueprint Analyzer, and as you can see, I haven't set anything up here yet. Like I said before, it's always a good thing to enter a name of the island before you actually get going, just because that way it comes up in your file hauler as the name, so you can actually work out which one is which when you're trying to get back to it. So this is a simple barn, so if I do this, you see that it updates the name up here, and then also now if we go into our FileHailer, we'll see that it has updated our name in here as well. So there you go, simple barn, that's where we currently are. Now the other thing we need to do, so we need to have our name done. We also need to take some photos, and we need to have some tags as well. So this final thing in under here, props can be any color. Now what this will do is if you check this, props can be made out of absolutely anything. The only thing that is a little bit difficult with this is if you are actually trying to have props that are supposed to be certain colors in certain rooms, for example, of your blueprint, ticking this will mean that somebody is not going to know where those items go in the thing. They're just going to see them in the blueprint machine, and they're just going to put whatever color decor items they like in there. So if things need to be very, very specific for your build just to make it look good, or that's the way you want it to look, make sure that this is unchecked. But if you don't really mind, if you think that anything you put down can be any random color that the person likes, you can check that, and then it's going to be up to them to throw the things into the blueprint machine that they like and that they think are going to be really good. So, of course, that's the details page. Then we need the photos. We need to have at least one photo and up to 5 photos. Let's go and take a few photos really quick. So pulling up P to take some photos. We're going to take a nice kind of aerial type shot, and then we're going to go in here a little bit, and we're going to take a nice shot about there. It's always good to take a lot of photos of your design so that somebody who's coming along and is potentially going to buy your design actually has a bit of a view of it from a couple of different angles so that they know that it's something that they might actually want to put down on their own home island. So once we've got a few photos done up, we can get out of the camera menu and come over here and actually add those photos to this build. So there we go, that's one nice shot. We've got a side shot, we've got the interior shot, and we've got another photo here. Okay, so now we've got those. The photo validation status for some reason doesn't update. I've never seen it update. That's okay. If we go down to tags now, because we've selected something, we can then choose some tags. There's a whole bunch of tags in here. So this is definitely a farm type building that I'm doing, and you can choose up to 3 tags. So personally, that one's it's a farm, and then we've also got a few things down here. So I would say this is the color brown because there is lots of brown in that build because of all of the wood that we've got in there. And it's descriptive basic because that is exactly what it is. Now there's a whole bunch more descriptive stuff down here, and there's a whole bunch of things, and I would recommend that you use as many of these tags as you can. Well, I would recommend using the 3 maximum that you're allowed for each build. And now you see that because we've got the tags done and the photos done and the details, the submit button has highlighted down here. That's because if we go back to the overview, everything's going well. We are on a green tick, which means we're ready to go and we can actually submit this build. So let's do a quick submit. So just like the destroy, the submit is going to log me out of here and land me back on my home island. And it's also going to ask me to confirm, and it's also going to tell me again how much it's actually going to cost to submit this build. Once back on your home island, you will notice that you have mail. So your mail will actually be your blueprint. So you actually get a machine of your own type in the mail as soon as you submit one. Now, your own blueprints cost you absolutely nothing, so if you do need 2 or 3 or 4 of your own blueprints, you can just go back to the blueprint trader and find your own submissions in his list, and they will cost you absolutely nothing, so you can just pick those up and you can just keep using them over and over and over again. So this is the simple barn that we built up, and as you can see, it tells you the basic size of the blueprint, but it doesn't really tell you a whole lot else. To get more information about the blueprint, we do need to place it down. Now, as you go to try and put the blueprint down, you can see that it's got these like red lines around the place, and that is where the blueprint is actually going to be set down. So right now, the sheep it's going to ignore completely, but the rock in the center there, it is not going to ignore completely. So if we remove the rock, quickly like that, we can now place this thing down in this spot here, just with any click. And there you go, we get a nice like ghostly image of what this barn is going to look like. So of course, to actually put this barn down, because I put a ground level into this thing, I would want to actually dig out 1 down and place the blueprint machine 1 level down from where I am. Now, to finish this thing off and actually place this into the world, all you need to do is add the materials that are listed here into this thing. So obviously this has got a lot of thatch and a lot of ground wood, and I don't have a lot of those things. But one thing I do have is I have got some lime grass here. So if we add this lime grass from my inventory into here, you will see that I haven't actually got much progressing up because it's only a single block, but it is actually in there. And yeah, once I'd actually finish this and once I'd put in everything, this building would pop up perfectly. But there's another thing you can do. You can, if you decide you don't like the placement, you can pick the blueprint constructor back up. You can go over and you can place it down somewhere else, somewhere that you think is going to work a little bit better. So for me, I think it's going to work a little bit better over here. Now when I place this back down and we have a look back inside, the lime grass is still there. So anything that you put inside the blueprint constructor is going to stay there. You even can't actually pick these back out again. I can't click and drag that back out of here. You can use these guys over here to to track that as a quest. So should be now in my quests here. There you go, collect lime grass 41. So if you really want to make sure you're going to get exactly enough of every item, you can track them all as quests, and then they're going to pop up in your quest bar. And when you either harvest the right amount, or when you pop out of a chest with the right amount, you'll get a nice little quest complete animation thing up in the side, which is really going to help you out. So yeah, there you go. These are blueprints, and that is most of what you can do with the Blueprint Studio right now. As you can see, I have a few blueprints on my own island waiting to be completed and waiting to be ready to go. And as you can see, really doesn't mind if there are some sheep in the way. It will mind once I actually get all of the materials together to get this thing built. But for now, it doesn't really mind at all. So yes, there you go. That is blueprints and everything you can do with blueprints, or at least almost everything you can do with blueprints. I hope you guys have enjoyed that one. If you have any questions about blueprints, please let me know, and I will try and answer them in either the comments or on the forums. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed that one, and I will see you in the next episode.